What's up, man? How are we feeling heading into this one?
Doing great. Feel great. Had a great training leading up to it, as always, and I'm just ready to get in and show, my improvements.
Is that something I know fighters always say, like, oh, this one's a great training camp, this one's a great training camp. How often is it actually a great training camp versus how often are you hiding some injuries and nagging stuff?
Well, I mean, every training camp, every week, especially depends on the person, but there's always little bumps and bruises and things. But as fighters, you know how to put that behind you and push through it regardless. But for me, I'm still in the process of I've been an American top team for a little over a year now, and I can see the improvements and how I've changed and all the different things that I've added to my arsenal. And when I say it, I'm getting better, I truly believe I'm getting better, and I'm just ready to ready to show everybody what I'm capable of doing.
Is that a cool experience, right? Because I'm sure as you're a younger guy training and fighting, you think, oh, I'm unstoppable, I'm unbeatable, I'm amazing. And then you go to a gym like that, and then you're around killers and you're around these amazing top-tier guys that you think, oh, there's really is levels to this, and I can see the progression I have to make. Is that a cool experience?
That's exactly right, and it's an amazing experience. When you're a small fish, a big fish in a small pond, it's one thing. But when you become the little fish in the big pond. Now, when you start getting these killers like Pedro Munoz, Marlon Moraes, Alexandre Pantoja, and other fighters that aren't in the UFC right now, like Kyoji Horiguchi, Adriano Moraes. When you train with those guys every day, you're gonna take some bumps and bruises, but you can see the improvements, as it goes on, and you guys are pushing one another. So, and it's great to feed off one another. All those guys are coming off of big wins, and some coming off losses, but still really good performances, and just getting to feed off of that energy, and to I look up to those guys and take bits and pieces of what they've taught me, add it to what I do, and it's going to make me more successful.
I'm sure, especially at the beginning, there are days where maybe you don't win the sparring matches, right? I'm sure there are days where you're like, God. But so how hard is it to go back to the gym the next day knowing, like, I'm taking some licks today? But then when you start, like, matching them or even getting the better of them, how much motivation do you take out of that? Like, oh, I can see the progress that I'm making.
It's not that hard for me, because that's the reason. That's why I moved to American Top Team. I want to lose rounds. And I've lost plenty of rounds. I've lost plenty. I've won some, and when you lose a bunch and then you win some, those wins that you get, it feels much better. You can. That's when you really see the improvements. And even when you're losing a round, you can still see improvements. The margins of losses in those rounds get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then every now and then they swing towards your favor. But for me, it doesn't. It doesn't really hurt me. I come home and I'm like, man, I didn't feel too good today. I tell my wife, I didn't do too well today, but next time I'm going to get them, and it's great. That's why I moved there, to take those losses. That way, I'd much rather lose in there than go out in the cage and lose in the octagon.
Losing, and it's not losing, it's sparring, right? But losing to those guys at that standard you're still going to do better than against the guys in here, right? Just last one from me. What would you say is the biggest thing you've learned, whether it be technical, mental? What's the biggest thing you've learned from being at this gym?
I think the biggest thing is just learning, continuing to be a sponge, learning what works for you, what works best for you. And the biggest thing for me, the older I get, even though I'm still young, just learning how to recover, the best ways to recover, things that are good and bad for your body, things that I used to do that I thought was fine, and now the older I get, the harder I've been training, the more I realize that maybe I need to get rid of some of those things and do other things. So recovery, sleep's a big thing, and just making sure that once you have a hard day of training, going back home and recovering and preparing for the next day.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Hey, Tony. This fight was supposed to happen in April, and it didn't happen. I'm curious if this fight was something you really wanted, and that's why it happened now, or did it just happen that way? Can you give me the?
I guess a little bit of both. I think this is one that the UFC really wanted, and I wanted this fight as well. Especially you get your idea on fighting somebody, and you picture, you're visualizing what you're gonna do and things like that. So, I wouldn't say that if we didn't fight, it would be a waste of that time, because either way, when I'm training for me, to better me, and to be the best that I can be, regardless of what person's in front of me. But I wanted this fight, and the UFC also wanted this fight, so it happened. I'm glad it ended up happening.
And you went on to fight and win, and he's still been sitting out. So do you feel like that's a little bit of motivation there, that you've got to win in the amount of time that you guys were supposed to fight last?
I guess I haven't really thought of it that way. I've just been kind of focusing on, my journey and my activity. And, the more active I am, the better it's going to be for me. So, I don't know how it's going to be for him. I don't know if that inactivity is going to be a negative or not. I hope not, because I want him to be his best when he comes in there. So when it's all said and done, when my hand's raised, there's no excuses for, why he didn't perform to the best of his ability.
Now, was there any difference in the first time that you trained for him versus now? Was there any changes you made, or was it just the same game plan, or anything different?
I think everything, the game plan, everything's the same. More for me, I don't really game plan as much. Like I said, I train to, make me the best no matter who's in front of me. And, I think the biggest difference is I'm continuously progressing. And the longer that I'm at American Top Team, the better I'm going to get. So the more time between, when he prepares for me, he's preparing for somebody that he saw fight 6 months ago. So 6 months is a huge time. And in that 6 months, I've gained a lot of knowledge. I've become a much better fighter, and I think just the time between my last fight and this fight, the biggest difference is just my constant progression.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony, thanks for taking the time to talk to media.
No problem. Thank you.
Yes, sir. On that progression, you've evolved as an athlete. Your progress is there as an MMA fighter. But what clicked that you said, okay, I need to make this move because I am no longer like, what again, just what helped you get out of that mindset to where you thought, like, all right, this is good as it gets, and clearly that wasn't the case.
So you mean like as far as moving to American
Yes.
Top Team? So it was a tough decision. I was really close with my old coach in Virginia, so it was a tough decision to make. It was one that I knew eventually I would probably have to make, and it's one of those things where you're progressing, and then you can kind of see you're getting a little stagnant, and you're not progressing as much. So, I lost. That had a little bit to do with it. It's kind of like that last indication of, okay, yeah, I'm kind of plateauing here, and my loss in my debut is kind of, that was part of the reason, and on top of that is just kind of just the eye opener. Like, maybe if I, had better training, tougher partners, maybe these situations that made me lose, maybe if I got in those situations during practice, I'd know what to do, and I wouldn't be in that situation in the fight. So, my wife and I, we made the decision to move down to Florida, and it's been great. I've done nothing but get better. Met a lot of great people, a lot of people that I used to look up to and still look up to before I even got there. So it's still surreal to me that I'm there amongst so many really good fighters, and just continuing to grow and learn from each of these guys and coaches, and helping better myself.
Excellent, man. I could hear the confidence. That's part of the evolution. How does it feel coming back to the Apex? Like, how will it be with not so much of a crowd Saturday, or does it even matter for this version of Tony?
It doesn't matter. Of course, us fighters, we're looking forward to the fans, and we miss the fans, because that's a different element to fighting. But I fought at the Apex. This will be my 4th time now. So between Contender Series, which I had some people there, had a decent amount of people, maybe like 15 people, come watch the Contender Series. So it's pretty loud in that small room, but my past 2 fights have been here at the Apex, so I kind of have an idea of what it feels like to not have a crowd. But I enjoy the fact that I can hear, my coaches and the advice and all things like that. So, it's bittersweet. I really like it because I like the cage that it's smaller because there's more action being pushed, and I like that I can hear, but also miss, the screams of the fans too.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.